I am thrilled to partner with Ancient and Brave. I am all about creating space for well-being in my day-to-day. And with Ancient and Brave, you can find your own ritual with their sustainably sourced collagen, blends and supplements, whatever your well-being goals. You can add a scoop of collagen or a dash of MCT oil to your morning coffee for the ultimate habit stack. What's more, Ancient and Brave are proud members of 1% for the Planet, meaning 1% of all their sales goes directly to environmental causes. So by adding true collagen to your wellness routine, you can take care of yourself and the planet too. For more details, visit ancientandbrave.earth/planet and discover how your choices can make a difference. Hello, I'm Caroline Marshall and welcome to Bump to Business Owner, the podcast speaking to mums in business, you. I'll be in conversation with some of the most inspiring women and mothers in enterprise about their journey, how they created their successful businesses alongside raising their children, and what that looks like in work and family life. Hello and welcome to today's episode of Bump to Business Owner. I am your host, Caroline Marshall, and welcome back for a little mini-sode. I actually started my first welcome session of Goldman Sachs growth program, which is very exciting. A lot of people on there, inspiring businesses I've used, which is really exciting to see. A couple I know of people in, so I'm excited to connect with them in person, and obviously loads of brand new businesses I've not come across before in there. So yeah, it's going to be an intense, I think it's 3 months, end of May it finishes, and there is a lot of work that will be happening as part of it. We have I think it's 3 sessions a week, own learning. I keep calling them retreats. I think I'm manifesting that I really want to do a retreat. Residentials. I think they're going to be a bit different to a retreat. Really, I might treat myself to a retreat. So if anyone has any recommendations, especially of founder retreats, business retreats, let me know. But I wanted to talk about a little bit of the process because I wanted to share more about what I noticed about my mindset when applying for this. Well, not in the initial application, but when I got to the interview stage, and how I slipped back into old patterns, which I think we all can do. And it was a really, really interesting exercise for me because I think it's probably a sign that I was really like getting to this next stage of uncomfortable comfort, changing my comfort zone, which you have to do as a founder. And so I think this is a really exciting thing that I did, that I managed to, well, it wasn't exciting that I managed to slip back into my old thought patterns and old habits, but I managed to recognize it and move on from that. And they gave me another chance to move on from it as well. So I'm going to talk about why I signed up to be on it, what I really learned during it, and how I have planned about starting it, because that's where the mother founder piece comes in, because the schedule isn't between school hours all the time. So I think that is an extra hurdle to talk about when you are starting something like this and you are a mother and founder as well, which is the point of this podcast. So why I've signed up for the program is that basically I think our growth as a business, well, I know it has, I read the numbers, has stagnated. And I also know, while that isn't uncommon in this in everything that's going on in the world the past couple of years, I have seen it with my clients. People aren't growing in the same way or growing in the way they planned, but at the same time there are businesses out there that are growing. So I wanted to really look into that, but I've really had to think about, because I talk about a lot. Year before last, I did a whole year of EMDR therapy. I've had to do a lot of work recovering from a traumatic event my second child had after his birth. And so I think there's also partly personal reasons. We grew hugely quickly following my maternity leave. It was quite incredible, amazing. I loved that we managed to get to a certain stage of business, but then we did kind of stagnate, and I think partly that was needed to kind of regroup who our client base are. We became VAT registered, all the normal things in a business, but also I really had to focus on my self-care, looking after myself. And just remember, fellow mums here, I was not working 5 days a week on this business for the first 3 years. I need to go back to the timings. I definitely did an episode on this. It was 3, and then I went up to 4, and it's school hours. So I think also appreciating the limits I had on my own time, and still do, but now I've done a lot of my personal work, growth work. I feel last year I got to stage, okay, well, what's next? What looks next, what is next for Upsource, and kind of address some of my fear I had around growing. And, you know, I was in a high growth virtual assistant agency environment, and it was a growth at all costs sort of environment. I am not on board with that. I've never wanted growth to sacrifice the team experience and the client experience. So I've wanted it to be intentional and also not burn myself out, because that's not going to help anyone, especially my family. So that's why I signed up to this course. So now I knew some people. I've got a client who's been on it. I've found some people in my network that have been on it. But while it is free in costs, they've made it very clear it's not free in time, and free in things like feedback and being a part of it and really committing to it. But I thought I was ready for that stage of committing to something. There is a lot of accelerators and things out there, but we are a bootstrapped business. I have no plans at this present. You never know, come end of May if that changes. I have no plans to fundraise, and a lot of accelerators tend to be focused around that. So this was really great because it is a growth program. So also then challenged myself last year, and then challenged myself to be like, okay, is this what you want? Do you want to grow your business, or do you want to keep it as is? And that was a really interesting process to go through. You have to do an application for this, and it goes, you know, into your plans, into who you are. There's criteria to meet to get onto this program, like any of them. And I got through to the interview round. I was just like, great. Still feeling a bit, I don't know, I was definitely nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I was like, is this going to be a bit like Dragon's Den, or is this literally like, you give a lot of detail in the application process? So I was like, or is this to check I am who I say I am? I had no idea which end of the spectrum it would be. And I don't want to talk too much in depth about what happens on the call, because I don't know if I'm allowed to do that. But I want to talk about how I felt on the call, and because all of this wasn't them, because spoiler, I went through the interview process again. But I realised afterwards, I felt very intimidated, very self-doubtful, and not very worthy of being someone who could grow a business. I really slipped into old habits of just feeling doubting myself. I think that's a good part to say. And it was an interesting exercise to go through. And they came back to me and said, think you've got a lot of potential. We don't think you're ready yet. And they said that I needed to do coaching. They were like, we think you need to, look into this further. They could clearly tell it wasn't about the business. If the business was ready, it was about me, which was really interesting. So I reflected on that. I thought, wow, great. It was still positive. I really took the positive. I got really to this mindset. They were giving me another shot, and whether it was the right thing for me to do. And I felt that was really good to give me this time. Now I had the experience of that call. Was it the right time for me to do it? And so I went away and did what I don't always do, and talked about this with people, which I think has been a really good exercise, because I can also have this habit of bottling things in. So while I did go back to my old mindset, I used to do this a lot in singing, feel very intimidated, feel not worthy, and feel silly. Can I say silly? Just feeling silly about my ambitions and feeling a bit ridiculous about them. And that was exactly how I felt, despite everything I've clearly achieved so far with Upsource and being a worthy business owner. I slipped back into all those things. So I asked around, I know some great coaches, asked some fellow female founders, and then it was actually having dinner with my parents. Classic. My dad was like, you don't need a coach, you've got me. And I was like, interesting. Do we go down this route? It's free. And actually, I have to say, one of my team has said this before in the past, I don't need mindset work. And I think the whole point of this was mindset. And I think I had to look into why I had this sudden mindset shift. And it was because I didn't feel confidence numbers wise. I am very confident in my numbers for a business owner. I know on the spectrum, I work a lot with a lot of founders, and I quite like maths. I'm not someone who's terrified by it. I like a spreadsheet. But I think I was really starting to feel, okay, how do I do this though? And I think there was kind of two areas I had to work on. And it was kind of like really getting a handle, on making sure I knew what I need to know as a founder from my cash flow and P&L each month, which was great. But also, okay, so what can Upsource look like in 3 years' time? What can Upsource look like if I wanted it to be £1 million business? And we started to look at those things, and that made me feel really confident, and that's what I needed to look at. And it really was the more practical side of growth, just not in depth because I'm going on a program to do that, but really to look at that. And also I did things like I've talked about, which I might talk about in another podcast soon, is I invested in a sales trainer. And that opened my eyes of things of like, okay, because if you're going to grow, you need to get in more business, and it can't just be reliant on referrals, word of mouth. Those are the best kind of new business. I will still say that. And the most likely to come to us if they've been referred by their founder friends. But I can't just rely on that if we're going to grow. And it's also looking at things like retention. So I really started to understand through these weekly sessions with my dad about just what things could look like. It was starting to take that time and to really feel confident that, you know, I can do this. And so, yeah, maybe there was some coaching around that. I'm not sure. But it quickly came around that I was going to do another interview with them, like super quickly. And I was like, oh God, am I ready? We got everything ready in time, had to submit some new things about the business, some numbers, because there'd been a new financial year, I think by this point, needed to update some things. And by the time the day came, I kind of sat there and I was like, you know what, Caroline, my little pep talk to myself, you know, I know my business inside out, and I know my business inside out. Like I've built so much of this myself, handed it over, got other people running it, got other help experts in, like I said, sales, legal, that I managed to build a podcast around it, things like that, managed to pay myself, managed to build a team. But also I really know the VA industry, like I know this industry, and that is where also being ingrained in your own community. Like I know our competition. I know where our strengths are, where our weaknesses are as a business, but also as an industry. And I think it's when you're passionate about, this is where it ends up being about your industry, and where you just being passionate about that side of things outside my Upsource bubble and where we fit in as a wider industry. And I sat there and I was like, I know this. I don't need to feel intimidated. I know this. I spend enough time speaking with other people, informally, formally, chatting with other people to know I can do this. And because I gave myself permission to really know that I do know my shit this time, is that I did really well. It was a completely different experience, completely different. I tell you one thing I didn't prep for was I forgot to prep for what questions I should ask, because it always looks good to ask questions. And luckily I'm actually really good at on the spot with that. So apparently I did, and they complimented me on that. So also remembering where your strengths are, mine are asking questions on the spot. And yeah, so that is my little pep talk I gave to myself. And I also got to a point, I'd been given this chance. If I wasn't going to get through, then it wasn't meant to be. I'd really made peace with that. I was like, I think I'd done all the work I could on myself, some finance work, as well as just a pep talk on myself, and I'd made peace with that, and it was meant to be, so I got on. So I challenge you, if you are starting to slip in your mindset with something, or you're really noticing the same patterns, is where have those patterns came up? And for me, it always came back to my singing. That is exactly how I would have behaved in the early days of interviews, or in just my entire singing. Don't think I can call it a career time in life, that I really would go back to those ways. And I have to say, remember that I've come a long way from there. I am a lot more aligned with what I'm doing now. It suits me with what I'm doing now, and I know what I'm talking about now. Not to blow my own trumpet, but come and talk to me about the assistant industry, because I really do know my stuff. So yeah, I got in, and it's starting now until May. And I also just wanted to talk about, it's not It's not within school hours. A lot of it is within working hours and things like that. But one of the sessions I have had to make sure me and my husband are aligned with where I'm going to be. I'm going to be away a couple of nights, and it's just that extra management and planning and communication. I'm very thankful he's got a flexible job, career, and there's an end in sight to it. If there's issues, we have some good babysitters around us, some family to plan with, but just also to share the practicalities. Sorry, my cat has joined, first time ever. Hi. Get that one. Hi, Dorothy. So that is the story. I hope I'm allowed to tell all of this. But my challenge for you is, if you're feeling like this, to really think why. And I read a book recently, a really great book. And if you're not into meditation and woo, please just give it a go and just sit in silence and try and remember where those feelings have come from, why you're feeling like that, and what you can put in place. And for me, the best thing you can do is talk about it, because otherwise, if I hadn't have been talking about it and so open with I went to this interview, I don't know if it's for me, I started slipping back into old habits, they've given me another shot, and I don't know I'm figuring out what my next steps are from here. But only by talking to her was I able to put it in place, and most importantly, overcome that mindset, really understand where it had come from and why. Yeah, I might have felt like that once upon a time, but why? I don't need to feel like that now. Thank you. If you want to hear more about my business stories, I'm totally going to be talking about this on socials, and really excited to share the next few months with you. Thank you. Thank you so much to Ancient and Brave for sponsoring today's episode of the Bump to Business Owner podcast. Try their Find Your Ritual quiz online to find out which of their products will help you achieve your wellness goals. Subscribe, and not only will you get your order regularly delivered to your door, you'll also receive a ritual scoop. As a member of 1% for the Planet, 1% of Ancient and Brave sales go towards helping environmental partners working towards a better future for our planet. For more details, go to ancientandbrave.earth. Thank you so much for listening to Bump to Business Owner. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Please do rate, review, follow, or subscribe wherever you're listening. It really helps us to connect with more mums and business owners. You can DM me on @BumpToBusinessOwner on Instagram, and I'll be back next week.